Good evening. This is John Boyer, the Dean of the College, and I'm speaking to you today from my office where I've met thousands of college students over these many years. It's my profound hope that I will soon be able to do this again, for the conversations that I've had with our students are one of the most precious and enriching parts of my job. Our task tonight is to comment on a number of important policy issues and structures that are relevant for our resumption of studies in the fall. And we are joined by 8 colleagues who have specific expertise to respond to your many questions about the autumn quarter and beyond. But before we begin our presentations, I want to observe that we know it's been very difficult for all of us to assimilate the fundamental changes and challenges that we've all experienced in our personal and civic lives over these past 5 months, and that continue to perplex us. We seem to live in a world that is filled with dynamic uncertainties and the constant need to recalibrate and to readjust to what we once knew as the known, but has now become a frustrating unknown. The learning that we will be doing together in the fall will take many different formats than in past years. And inevitably, it will require flexibility and patience and an openness to experimentation and innovation. Right now, having completed the spring quarter in mid-June, our faculty in many of our core courses and majors are working tirelessly on innovative and exciting pedagogical approaches for their courses and programs for the fall, and indeed for the whole of the coming academic year. We will be reporting about some of these innovations tonight, but many more will be announced in the weeks to come. Our faculty are dedicated to the intellectual welfare of our students because together, and only together, do we constitute a true academic community. Communities are resilient creatures, and so are the many friendships and relationships that make our community so deeply productive. Much is at stake for all of us. Protecting our community, protecting all of you as citizens of that community, and protecting the college as a brilliant experiment in learning is our shared challenge and our common task for the coming year. Our former president, Robert Maynard Hutchins, once said that, quote, "What education can do, and perhaps all that it can do, is to produce a trained mind. Getting a trained mind is hard work. The best practical education is in some ways the most theoretical one," end quote. Yet a trained mind comes from many public and collective practices between students and faculty, and communication and collaboration are thus key features of our institutional culture. Such training comes in the interactions among and between us as much as via individual study. Indeed, the very nature of our community is inherently collaborative and collective, not isolated and insular. That is why we decided, with great deliberation, that we should open the college to all students who wish to return to Hyde Park, rather than to exclude some in favor of others. We acknowledge that some students may decide to remain or may have to remain in their home communities for a variety of reasons, and most of our courses will have remote capabilities to enable students to enjoy a rich and stimulating academic experience in that mode. But we also think that to return to Chicago is to return to a host of communitarian resources and stimulating intellectual friendships in support of a magnificent liberal education. It is to return to a community in which, as Hutchins once put it, the air is electric, and that introduces students in powerful ways to the challenges of intellectual partnerships and gives them a common and shared vocabulary of ideas and ideals. It was an ancient Greek ideal that the city, the polis, and only the city, can educate women and men to live full and enriching lives defined by moral excellence and intellectual independence. Our university is such a polis, a formidable intellectual community of friends set within the wider home of a great metropolis of the city of Chicago itself. We very much hope to welcome as many of you as possible home to Chicago in the coming academic year. Now let me turn to the contributions of our distinguished speakers. It is my pleasure to introduce my colleague and friend, Professor Kai Lee, Provost of the University of Chicago.
Thank you, John. It's great to be here with all of you today. And as Provost, a professor of chemistry and a researcher, I really understand deeply what makes this university special. Our culture of vigorous inquiry and our willingness to challenge conventional thinking in pursuit of knowledge and better solutions. We're committed to maintaining that distinctive UChicago educational experience regardless of the instructional format in the autumn quarter. And as we announced last week, we are looking forward to welcoming as many college students as possible back to campus in the fall. For the past several months now, 6 planning groups have been intensely focused on addressing scenarios from every aspect of a return to campus, from instruction to housing and dining, from research to the workplace, from N-12 education to national labs. This work is continuing in close collaboration with public health experts and the University of Chicago Medicine. We also have a student advisory group that is providing valuable feedback to inform our plans. Our first and foremost priority is protecting the safety, health, and well-being of our university community. We also have an unwavering commitment to academic excellence, and we're preparing to offer a robust educational experience both remotely and in person. We're continuing to identify innovative ways to facilitate connections for all students, as well as developing and sharing best practices for teaching remotely. To help new students acclimate to the university, priority for in-person classes will be given to courses that serve new students. As you will soon hear in more detail, the experience will be different. Everyone returning to campus will need to complete training in advance and be expected to wear face coverings, practice social distancing, and self-monitor for symptoms of COVID-19. Classrooms are being reconfigured to allow for social distancing, and new ventilation and cleaning protocols will be put in place to comply with new local and federal guidelines and regulations. However, we are at the same time excited for the quarter ahead, knowing it will provide an opportunity for students to have meaningful intellectual and social experiences. I realize this has been a challenging time for all of us, and it will require us to continue to adapt and collaborate to achieve our academic ambitions while taking steps to keep each other safe. As a parent of a current college student and a recent graduate this spring, I know firsthand the questions and decisions you are facing as you make preparations amid uncertainty. I've been impressed by the creativity, perseverance, and dedication of our students who have come together to support each other and develop innovative approaches to education and social activities in this period of remote learning. I also want you to know that our instructors and staff will do everything we can to make sure students have the resources and support they need to make progress on their academic journey. Unprecedented times call for bold and creative thinkers, and they're exactly the type of students that are drawn to the University of Chicago. Even across distance, our community remains vibrant and strong, and we're committed to delivering a truly transformative education for all of our students. We are fortunate to have the expert guidance of UChicago Medicine. Now, Dr. Landon will share some of the knowledge that has helped establish health and safety measures for autumn in conjunction with public health guidelines and student advisement. Dr. Landon?
Thank you, Dr. Lee. Hello, everyone. I think this may be one of the first times that we're meeting. I am Emily Landon. I'm an infectious diseases physician and the hospital epidemiologist for the University of Chicago. I am thrilled to be a part of this wonderful journey, although like all of you, I wish we didn't have COVID-19 getting in the way of everything we're trying to do. The good news is that the situation in Illinois is better than it is in many other parts of the country. There are still some counties in our state that have issues, but we are seeing a trend downward in Chicago, and we have been extremely successful thanks to very quick thinking and early action on the part of our state government to try and quell the spread of COVID-19. In Chicago, we're seeing many people wearing masks. taking care of each other, keeping their distance, and having the sort of behaviors that we need in order to successfully reopen places like the University of Chicago. At the hospital, we have been challenged from the very beginning to continue our operations and figure out how to safely take care of patients with COVID. At many times, we had up to 150 COVID positive patients in our hospital. And yet we had very few of our healthcare workers ever get sick. In fact, I can't imagine one of them getting sick. I don't think we've had a single one get sick from taking care of a patient. And for that reason, we know a lot now about how to protect people in the age of COVID. And it comes down to an approach that I think is going to help the college as well. We've been working together from the very beginning with both the university, the schools, the K through 12 schools, the hospital, and a number of other parts of our community and the state to help create safe places for people to be able to get on with their lives and coexist with COVID, not just stay at home. In order to do this, we need to stack interventions. No one thing is going to protect people from COVID. We need to stack these interventions, layering them together in order to create a safety net. None of them is perfect, and yet if we practice them all of the time, then we'll be able to accommodate for any of the problems that may happen and coexist with COVID. This means things like mandatory face coverings, covering both your mouth and your nose. Cloth face coverings are just fine. They work very well. Mandatory hand washing and cleaning of surfaces. You'll see many more cleaning people and lots of things being cleaned and be asked to participate yourself. We'll also see things like additional space in between individuals, in classrooms, on the quad, in your dorms and residence halls. We'll have only single occupancy dorms and assigned bathrooms. There will also be extra opportunities for testing. People living in dorms and in residence halls and people working in those areas will have to get tested regularly. People will be offered testing anytime they're symptomatic, and there'll be opportunities to be tested even more frequently as part of a voluntary surveillance program. But most importantly, we're asking everyone to follow their symptoms very closely, because the most important thing is for us not to be out of our house if we have any symptoms of COVID at all. And so you'll be asked to attest to being well every single day, and you'll be asked to be very careful around other people. If you do get sick, there'll be a place for you to stay away from others, and we have an in-house contact tracing program designed just by the University of Chicago in order to make sure that we track all of the cases and find everyone that may have been exposed and keep them from being able to pass it on. This is going to be hard for all of us, and there are going to be a lot of changes. It's going to be different than it was before. But as long as everyone is following these guidelines and paying attention to the rules, I know they may be frustrating and you may be tempted to just want to go out and do things the same way you always did. But it's very important that you remember that if you follow these guidelines, both on campus and anything you may be doing off campus, it will protect you and the campus community. If we all work together and follow the guidelines, we will be prepared to have a successful return to campus. Of course, University of Chicago, both the college, the university, and the hospital are following all of the public health things that happen very, very closely. We're following all of the developments and making sure that we know exactly what's happening. And if we need to make changes, if we learn more about the virus, if we learn more about how to protect you, how to protect the professors, how to protect anyone, we're going to implement it right away. This has been a Herculean effort. And I am so proud and impressed to be a part of this team that has worked together to find a way to get the University of Chicago back open again so that we can work together and build a new kind of community in a pandemic. I know that it won't be what you had hoped it was going to be, but like Provost Lee said, we need bold and creative thinkers and people who can find a way for us to connect and to work together and to build an academic community regardless of whether or not there's a pandemic. As long as we're all working together and following the guidelines and the health policy instructions, I think we'll be okay. And we'll watch out together. Thank you. I'd like to introduce Regine Enyusin.
Thank you, Dr. Landon, for being with us this evening and for your expert guidance and these words of encouragement. My name is Regine, and you sent as Dr. Landon. I serve as the deputy students in the college. My hope this evening is to share with all of you our plans for the autumn quarter as they concern orientation and campus programming, to address the questions that have come our way, and to reassure you that while this will be new and different for all of us, we are all hard at work to make this as special and memorable as it can be, all things considered. Most of our incoming students, most of our new students have been engaged with the college already through our summer engagement. Most of you have been working with the college programming and orientation team since mid-May, and the UChicago mentoring program. This will be, your engagement with your mentors will continue throughout the fall quarter. You've been receiving our orientation resource mailings. These will continue to come your way on a bi-weekly basis, both to students and to parents on a monthly basis. And all of the communications that are being sent from the college are being posted on the orientation website. We will be deploying resource panels and webinars. Some of them have already been coming out and have been posted to the orientation website. These will continue to be part of the summer engagement. And as new topics come up, we will be incorporating those in the webinars. Our mentoring program, we launched this last year for incoming students, and given the success of this, we will continue to have this be a part of the experience for students. And we encourage our incoming students to be in contact with their mentors if there are questions that are coming up, if there are things that seem to be points of frustration or things that are not quite easily navigated at the university. Use your mentors. They are to be your resource and to be that big sister, big brother as you figure this place out. Orientation, I know there have been a lot of questions about what this will look like. What we have called traditionally Orientation Week or O Week at the University of Chicago. O Week is being rebranded as just orientation. We've taken O Week and broken it into three major parts. We have what will be launched as online orientation shortly after Labor Day. So September 8th through September 24th, we will incorporate online orientation into our campus learning management system, Canvas. We will have the on-campus orientation part that will pick up after move-in concludes on September 25th, and which will conclude on September 29th. And then we will have our welcome week post-orientation experience for incoming students that will take place the first week of class. So those are the three components of orientation that will be a part of the experience for incoming students. For online orientation, again, that will launch after Labor Day. We will incorporate all of the online trainings for students. This will be all of the onboarding and onboarding and training. Dr. Landon mentioned that we will have COVID-19 training and attestations to help students prepare for the new normal and life on campus and living with the pandemic. So all of those things will be incorporated into this new online orientation into the learning management system. All of our expectations, our community expectations, what we expect of new community members coming into the University of Chicago, what would have been a part of our campus life meetings, and what would have been experienced by new students in person will also be incorporated into online orientation. And so these range from our diversity and inclusion meetings and conversations and trainings, our Title IX training and training and onboarding, our health and wellness, safety and security, all of those things that help students successfully transition into the university community will be included in that. We will also segment parts of the incoming student population and tailor some of the training for our international students and our transfer students, as we know that some of the messaging tends to be a little bit different for those communities. And as we see fit, as we deem necessary throughout the summer, we will incorporate additional town halls or webinars into the online orientation experience as well. The next part, on campus orientation, the other thing, the hallmarks of orientation or the signature elements of Orientation Week, our opening convocation, the aims of education, our academic advising meetings, our career advising meetings, all of these things will be into the office experience, or what students will participate in when they are physically on campus. If the situation changes, and we are hoping that the situation changes to allow us to bring small groups of students together, we hope to be able to do some of these in person. But if we are not, these will continue to be virtual, and to the extent that we can, we will then have some of these be in person. And then the third part, again, will happen post-orientation or during Welcome Week. Again, the first week of class, our academic opportunities introduction, our student activities and resource fair, and additional optional and social programming. During this time also, we hope to capitalize on the opportunity to program around our housing communities, so both at the house level and the residential hall level. These are events and programs that we would have traditionally had part of Orientation Week. We don't elements, and in the strength of our residential program, we want to make sure that we keep that reinforced and provide students with the opportunity to form those communities, those tight-knit bonds with the students, the other students that they live with. And the last piece is for the parents that are in the audience, our family orientation. While we expect that family orientation will look a bit different because we aren't able to bring everyone together for all of those elements, there will be a lot that is pre-recorded and provided on the orientation website. We will have some that are offered as live panels or webinars, are successfully transitioning your student to the college, our sessions on financial aid, our sessions on resources for parents, our family resources fair, additional information about what to expect where concerns move in, procedures and expectations and guidelines, again, as I mentioned before, about additional town halls or webinars as we deem necessary, as we feel necessary. We would like to be able to add additional opportunities for the community to come together to have additional conversations around what to expect. The college programming and orientation office will continue to serve as the primary resource for incoming students around the orientation experience and programming. My colleague Jay Ellison will talk about the academic side of things and advising, placement tests, and preparing for the academic life on campus. And so the advising office and some of the other offices in the Dean of Students office will be the other, but the PO team and the peer mentors will continue to be the leads on all things orientation and programming related. So we continue to be your point people. Feel free to reach out, and we look forward to answering your questions. It now gives me great pleasure to turn things over to Jay Ellison, Dean of Students.
Thank you, Regine. Hello, everyone. As Regine said, I'm Jay Ellison. I'm the Dean of Students in the college. I want to tell you a bit about the academic plans that we have for the fall quarter. First and foremost, as Dean Boyer said, our faculty and instructional staff have been working very, very hard to develop courses and opportunities so that this is going to be a great year, and that your experience will be in line with our values of academic rigor and critical inquiry. Because of their hard work, the autumn quarter course instruction will take place in dual modality format, with most courses available virtually. The university is also working on virtual science labs so that students have the opportunity to complete requirements in the lab. This means that you will be able to continue your studies entirely remotely if you so choose. And for students who return to Hyde Park, you will be able to enroll in classes for in-person interaction, a hybrid format, or also remotely. When you register for classes, there will be tags that will tell you whether the course can be taken remotely, entirely, or if there is a component that requires either in-person or on-campus resources or facilities. So that way you will be able to build the schedule you want, taking into account your preferences. To support you, the units and programs in the College Dean of Students office work in concert with one another to foster academic excellence, as well as create and support learning opportunities that have a lasting impact on undergraduates' futures. They work to ensure that all undergraduates have opportunities to engage deeply in their own learning and by providing the tools and resources they need to thrive in the classroom and beyond it. From orientation to graduation, each unit within the DOS enrich the points of connection that students have to each other, to their own collegiate experience, and of course to us. It's important at the University of Chicago that this collegiate experience be something that's meaningful for you. These professional staff help students identify the context that make their academic work meaningful in keeping with the university's commitment to academic rigor. The DOS office and its respective units foster a campus culture of engaged and capable scholars who are co-creators and designers of their own path to graduation. Its collective efforts ensure that college students do more than survive their undergraduate experience. They thrive, fully engaged intellectually, socially, and emotionally. In doing so, students maximize their potential for success while at the university and also as they prepare for future success in a diverse and global society. Every student is assigned an academic advisor at the college. The academic advisor is a professional and a generalist whose job it is to connect you, the student, to resources and support as you develop your plans for your academic career. The advisors are excited about meeting you, all of you, incoming and continuing students, and will continue to be a resource and available to you remotely, just as they were in person. You can schedule remote advising appointments using the college schedule site. If you were thinking about taking a leave of absence or a gap year, I encourage you to reconsider and consider continuing to work on your degree progress and towards graduation. We are planning a number of exciting opportunities, and we just think it'll be a great time to be here. However, if you wish to do so, please be in touch with your academic advisor. To give you a sense of the options that we are working on, the first is an opportunity for our international students. One of the things we are actively engaged in is planning to permit first-year students who reside overseas to complete their fall quarter studies on our campuses in Hong Kong and Paris if they are unable to secure visas for travel to the US. For students that can reach these centers, you will be able to study in person for some of your coursework and take campus courses remotely from here to fill out your schedule. We have staff on the ground at both locations, and they are working very hard on preparing for the autumn. We are also seeking ways by which our other international centers, the ones in Beijing, Delhi, and London, may support other continuing college students living in Asia or Europe who, because of visa issues, are unable to travel to Chicago in September. More information will be available on this very soon. A quick note about the calendar. Classes will begin on September 29th with in-person instruction ending before the Thanksgiving break. The last week of courses, reading period, and final exams will be conducted entirely remotely. You should check the registrar's website for the particulars of the calendar for the rest of the autumn quarter. This year, we are asking incoming first years to express interest in their humanities core. All first years are required to take a humanities first year. So we want you to do this and declare it early, actually starting on July 13th. And depending on your interest, you will also be able to select preferences for social sciences core. On July 27th, the autumn schedule of classes will be published online, and continuing students can start registering for classes on August 3rd, with incoming first years starting on August 10th for the non-hum or soc courses. Continuing students will get the results of their pre-registration the week of August 21st, and first years on September 8th, the same day as add drop and consent periods open. We will be asking you whether you intend to return to Hyde Park or whether you intend to study remotely or at one of our centers if possible. We will reach out to you soon. If you have any questions at all, please reach out to your advisor. And finally, to the parents, particularly the parents of incoming first years. Everyone at the university is committed to your students' success. We want them to get the most out of this educational opportunity and this experience and develop for themselves the knowledge and skills that they need to be successful in life. We want them to thrive inside and outside the classroom, and will fully support them in meeting their goals and aspirations. And now, to tell you more about our plans related to education and classroom instruction, it is my pleasure to introduce Christopher Wild, Master of the Humanities, Collegiate Division, and Professor of Dramatic Studies, Theater, and Performance Studies, and the college.
Thank you, Dean Ellison. Good afternoon. It is a pleasure to talk to you all about teaching and learning in the coming autumn quarter and some of the exciting ideas and initiatives that my colleagues across the college have been developing to make the air electric, as Dean Boyer mentioned. You will be wondering, what will teaching and learning look like in the autumn quarter? And my short answer is that much of it will look like in the spring quarter, in which all instruction was conducted online, but much better. Unlike at most other schools, my colleagues had 3 weeks between the winter and spring quarters to redesign and move their courses online, and they did a marvelous job. Sure, there were some glitches here and there, but my colleagues brought their enormous pedagogical passion and ingenuity to bear to create challenging and stimulating learning experiences for their students. As soon as the quarter ended, we got right to work to learn from the spring in order to apply the lessons learned to next year. Thus, we have 3 months now to ensure that the students next year will experience the academic rigor and critical inquiry for which the University of Chicago is known. While most classes will be offered virtually or remotely, a significant number will also have a face-to-face component or even taught entirely in person. These kind of hybrid classes will be our new frontier, but I'm confident that those colleagues who will elect the dual format will rise to this challenge because, to be honest, being forced to teach remotely in the spring made us all much more self-reflexive and effective teachers. The current crisis has given rise to a host of exciting new pedagogical ideas and curricular initiatives that may come to transform education at the University of Chicago for years to come. As Master of the Humanities Collegiate Division, I oversee the so-called Humanities Core, that part of Chicago's core curriculum that all first-year students have in common. To enhance their intellectual experience, we're doing something very innovative for next year. We're asking all incoming students to express interest in the Humanities Core sequence early, as Dean Ellison mentioned, and we will be assigning students to their rooms in the residential halls based on the core sequence they selected. And depending on their interest, they will also be able to select their social sciences core. By housing students based on their core course, students will be living in small living learning communities, and this will create strong intellectual connection among the first-year class, with shared course readings and assignments during the quarter. The discussion, debate, and even argument that famously fills our residence halls will have the added benefit of a shared coursework. In fact, at the University of Chicago, we believe so much in the power of books to create intellectual community that we will send all first-year students summer reading based on the humanities course sequence they have chosen. I'm currently working with the chairs of the humanities core sequences to select a timely book that ties in with the timeless themes and questions instructors will discuss over the quarter with their students. Needless to say, the initiative regarding our centers in Hong Kong and Paris, which Dean Ellison mentioned, is the international extension of this curricular initiative of aligning the core curriculum with residential life. For our returning second, third, and fourth year students, we're launching a number of exciting curricular initiatives too. Let me just mention a few that will speak to a large number of students in the college. A number of departments and programs have been working to pull together creative ideas for augmenting existing courses and intensifying learning opportunities across and beyond courses. So-called course bundles link together classes that are thematically and methodologically connected. They run in parallel all quarter long and provide an intensive community of inquiry that draws on the traditional strengths of the curriculum at the University of Chicago. For instance, a course bundle offered by the Department of Economics, and the following is just one of many, on behavioral and economic immersion, brings together the most exciting contributions from economics, psychology, and neuroscience made during the last century and teaches them in an innovative, integrated manner by asking questions such as, how would you play the prisoner's dilemma game? Another bundle designed by the Program of Human Rights examines how human rights have been constructed in a variety of idioms while exposing students to their contested genealogies and limits. And the Chicago Studies program extends this idea of immersive learning across the disciplines beyond the classroom by taking students out into the vibrant urban environment that is Chicago. In the college, we are well aware that the student's experience is not all about coursework, but that co-curricular activities are no less important to their rich and cultural and intellectual life. Thus, we moved as much of our co-curricular programming as possible online in the spring quarter. For instance, we ran a giant transmedia game called A Labyrinth, in which over 3,000 students and alumni participated. In the fall quarter, we're planning a similar alternative reality game called Exoterra that will allow students to add collaborative world-making projects to any participating courses. And we're anticipating that instructors from a host of different disciplines across the college will join in this educational role-playing game. In the spring quarter, many of our art departments moved art making online. For instance, the program in Theater and Performance Studies offered virtual dance classes, and the Department of Visual Arts sent art supplies all across the globe so that their students could continue to pursue their artistic passions. I foresee that my colleagues in the arts will approach the complex hybrid environment in the fall with their usual ingenuity, offering instruction on the move or under tents. And I know that the Institute of Politics and the college's Parousia program for public discourse are creating stimulating programming around the presidential election, engaging students in citizenship and productive conversation about pressing issues and events. So as you can see, the air is indeed electric at the University of Chicago, and I joined Dean Boyer in the hope that you will join in building the academic intellectual community that we all cherish, a community that has to rebuild and refresh itself continually if it is to thrive. And now it is my pleasure to introduce Richard Mason, Associate Dean in the college and Assistant Vice President of Housing and Residence Life, who will speak about housing and living arrangements to you.
Thank you, Professor Wild, and good evening. As Assistant Vice President for Campus Life, I have the great responsibility for on-campus housing and dining. This fall, as we welcome students back to campus, we are focused on making our residence halls and dining commons as safe as possible and committed to supporting our students. As you heard from my colleagues earlier this evening, we have incorporated the information from Dr. Landon and her group into our plans for housing and dining this fall, as well as incorporating the lessons we learned from the small group of students who were unable to go home and stayed in residence during this past spring quarter. This autumn quarter, we will be open with reduced density at about 60% of our total capacity, with students assigned to single rooms and with separate bathroom designations. Those bathroom designations will help reduce the density in our community bathrooms. In our residential dining commons, we will be at an even greater reduction, with our seating capacity being at 25% of our usual capacity. Given these reduced capacities, we have suspended the 6-quarter live-on requirement for the 2023 class. We will be able to house all of the incoming first-year students in on-campus housing. And in our prior announcements, we mentioned that we were going to prioritize second-year students who had expressed a desire to live on campus. And I'm pleased to say that we will be able to house all of the second years that had requested housing. So by the end of this week, those second years will have their lottery number and will be able to go through the room selection process that will follow. The 4 residential dining commons, with the addition of the new Woodlawn residential dining commons, will have extended hours. All the food will be served, so there'll be no self-service, and there will be a robust Meals to Go program to help with the limited dine-in seating that we will have available. The dining commons will, however, continue to offer the wide variety of meals that we have. The kosher station, halal, gluten-free, vegetarian and vegan stations will be open in every one of the dining commons. You heard Regine talk about a move-in process, and this year it will be a little different in that it's going to be staggered over a number of days. And we will soon be releasing information on the move-in time and the process by which you can register those that are helping students move in. The housing and residence life staff, the resident heads, assistants, resident deans, will be in residence this fall. They'll be supporting students and be providing programming. At first, that'll be virtual, and then, when safe, we'll transition to in-person. And the resident staff will be regularly checking in with students virtually. In anticipation of the limited capacity in on-campus housing, we have worked with local landlords and rental agencies, and they have indicated that there is an available inventory for those needing off-campus apartments. In addition, this year, the financial aid packages for off-campus students have been increased to reflect housing and dining expenses. I now want to introduce Michelle Rasmussen, the Dean of Students in the university, who will be talking about the Health Pact, Wellness, and Student Life. Michelle?
Thank you so much, Richard. And I'd like to thank not only the speakers who have come before me, but welcome and thank everyone who's joining us this evening. I'd particularly like to welcome our newest students and their families at the University of Chicago. And I know I speak for all of my colleagues in campus and student life when I say how much we look forward to meeting you in the autumn. So a little while ago, you heard Dr. Landon talk very eloquently about the absolute need for certain precautions and steps to make sure that everyone on campus is healthy and well. And I just wanted to spend a few moments this evening giving a little bit more detail about what we anticipate we'll have for students and the expectations we'll have for students. And I think what's really important to keep in mind about this is that this is all towards a common end, which is to make sure that we are building a safe and healthy community and that we're all watching out for each other and our well-being. So try to think less of these about as restrictions or rules, and more about these as being ways to ensure that we have a great year and a healthy year. So a little bit more detail. Every student, visiting family member, instructor, and staff member on campus will be required to adhere to mandatory health and safety practices to help keep themselves and our community well. And this will include a formal commitment that we're going to call the UChicago Health Pact that we've instituted to help prevent the spread of COVID-19. This health pact is very commonsensical. It's going to require that people wear face coverings, maintain physical distancing, self-monitor every day and check their symptoms. Do they feel well? And if they don't feel well, to make the conscious decision to stay home or stay in their res hall. And we're also going to have, as part of this health pact, a way for people to report a positive COVID-19 test or any concerns about COVID-19 to the administration. There'll be a few extra requirements for our students who will be living in our residence halls. In addition to the staggered move-in and arrival, students who will be living in our residence halls will be part of a mandatory COVID-19 testing program. And at the beginning of their move-in period, they will be required to quarantine. And this is just to make sure that everyone starts off the quarter safe and COVID-free. If at any point during the quarter or the year, we do have students who test positive for COVID-19, we have a plan to provide temporary relocation facilities for those students where they can self-isolate. We'll make sure they have the care they need, including delivery of any food that they would require. I also think it's really important to note that we are going to have a full complement of health and wellness services for all students, no matter where they are around the world. And this is particularly true about our mental health services. We recognize that this is a stressful time for many of us, a time of uncertainty and anxiety. And on top of that, we're expecting you to be great students. So we're going to have a full complement of teletherapy, wellness programs, psychiatric services, and they can be offered remotely or in person, depending on the need. And we're also very excited about a whole suite of wellness programming that will not only help students be able to manage just the everyday stress of being a student, but will also help them build connections with both staff and faculty and students on campus. So we're really looking forward to giving you more information about these special programs, and we look forward to seeing you in the fall. I'm now very excited to introduce my colleague who really needs no introduction. Many of you, if not all of you, know him, our Dean of Admissions, Jim Naundorf.
Thank you, Michelle. Hello, everyone. I asked Dean Boyer if I could speak to you today for two reasons. One, I miss you. I miss you all, and I'm excited to have you back this fall on campus and walking around and having you give me a shout out. I really appreciate that. But secondly, and probably much more important, is the fact that when you applied to UChicago, whether it was 4 years ago, 3 years ago, 2 years ago, or just this last year, I learned many things about you. One, you're awesome. I think you all know that. Two, you're very passionate about things. Three, you will overcome any obstacles that stand in your path to your success. And lastly, you're eager to make an impact on the world. I know that. You wrote about it, and every time I see you, I'm reminded of that. The bottom line is you're on a journey. You have places to go, things to achieve, and quite honestly, looking in the news daily, the world needs you. Don't let COVID or anything stand in your way or slow you down. I wanted to give you some, in my mind, the current situation is like traveling to an incredibly important event or someplace that you've always wanted to go, Disneyland, wherever some important concert. If you're driving somewhere and there's construction, do you turn around and go home? Do you pull over and wait for the road to be fixed? In Chicago, you would never go anywhere. Do you put on the gas, and ram the barricades? Maybe in New York City, but outside of New York, I'm going to say the answer to all of these is no. You keep going, you take other streets, and sometimes you find shortcuts, you find a better route that you're going to use in the future, and sometimes you find a more scenic drive that you might take in the future. This fall, it might be a little bit like flying when there's, and you're flying on a plane and you experience turbulence. You have to keep your seatbelt fastened and you're unable to move about the cabin. Flight attendants don't bring you drinks, which makes me upset, and they don't bring you peanuts or anything to eat. All of this, however, deep down, even when you're irritated, this is for your safety. Your safety is the most important thing for the airline, and it's there to get you where you want to go and where you need to go. It's not to punish you, and it's certainly not to make your experience less positive as you're going to where you need to go. And as an aside, I want to let you just say, Don't be that guy who doesn't listen, unbuckles, stands up anyway, opens the overhead and lets things fall out on my head and other passengers. Nobody likes that person. And quite honestly, you really have to think about both yourself but others this fall. This is not going to be the last pandemic, and it's not going to be the last crisis in your life. The faculty and the university, they're committed to continuing your world-class education. That's what we do. Michelle and her team, they are committed to providing the best college experience you can have during COVID. And we, certainly for advancement, we are dedicated to supporting you for your future. I hope you're going to step up this fall, because this is, everyone has to. And I hope you're going to take this crisis actually as an opportunity. If you're a social scientist, invent a new field of social science analyzing the impacts of quarantine. If you're an arts or humanities student, create new art forms that leverage technology and social distancing. Quite honestly, this is your opportunity to become an expert on productivity during a pandemic. I've been talking to employers, I've been talking to admissions deans at medical schools, law schools, business schools. Everyone has the same view, which is this is an opportunity to see students, are they resilient? Will they step up? Do they know how to make the most out of an opportunity? Don't sit this out. This is your opportunity to make the most of it. We are in this together. And parents, I'd like to talk to you very directly about this. I've seen you support your students through thick and thin. You invest, you sacrifice, you've done so much for them. This is no different. This is a chance to support and help your student continue moving forward. The university's committed to it. The faculty are committed to it. Every staff member is committed to it. And we're going to be there for you. So don't sit this out and make the most of it, students. And parents, if you have suggestions, that's what we're here for. If I want to summarize it, the bottom line is I believed in you when I admitted you, and I still believe in you guys. Good luck, and have a great quarter. Dean Boyer, thank you for letting me just chime in here, but we're going to be here for you. I think we have some Q&A time, perhaps.
Okay, thank you, Jim. And thank all of my colleagues who have presented. We do indeed have some time. We've received many questions from parents and students, and we have a chance to answer some today. And we'll have a question and answer website up shortly that will address many of the other questions. So let me just pose a few questions, and I'll ask the relevant person who's most responsible for that area to respond, and then I'll have some closing remarks. The one question that we got of a lot of students, and that has to do with the when students will find out the format of the classes in which they're going to be, which they'll be offered. I think Jay may have mentioned that, but maybe Jay could say a little bit more about that. When will students actually find out the specific structure of the classes in which they'll be enrolling?
Sure, Dean Boyer. So when the scheduled classes is published online July 27th, there'll be a little tag next to the title that'll say either remote, hybrid, or in person. And that's searchable as well. When students, so that's on July 27th. So when students start registering, the continuing students on August 3rd, and then the new students on August 10th, you can actually search. So if you decide that you want to work at home or do everything remotely, you can actually exclude and filter for just remote, just in person, or the hybrid. So 27th, you'll get the information of this month, and then August 3rd and August 10th is when they'll choose classes.
Okay, thank you, Jay. Another question that we got, and I think this is, again, on the minds of many people, it has to do with the students who are in the residential system. What happens after we close on the Friday before Thanksgiving, which we're going to do, as Jay indicated, and the calendar will be published online, so you can look at all of the details of that calendar. But is it, and the question specifically from one person was, is it mandatory to move out prior to Thanksgiving, or may students stay on campus for the online courses through the end of winter quarter? Maybe Richard Mason could address that one.
Yeah, thank you, Dean Boyer. And the answer is no, it's not mandatory that they leave. Students are going to have a choice. If they choose to go home and or travel for any or all of the Thanksgiving holiday, then they will need to complete their quarter remotely and not return to their residence hall, and that's just to safeguard the community as a whole. However, if they choose to remain, they can continue through the end of the quarter. The residence halls and the dining halls will be fully operational all through Thanksgiving that week, and then through the end of the quarter.
Okay, thank you, Richard. That's good news for the students who wish to do that, and I'm very pleased we're going to be able to offer that opportunity to our students. We had another question, and this is, I have to say, very close to my heart, involving our career programs. We have, I think, within the top private universities, one of the most extensive and most, I think, effective career planning operations. We're very proud of that. They go back really 25 years. The question that has come up involving these programs is whether there be virtual internship and career opportunities for students who are not coming to campus during the fall. So I'm going to ask Jim Nodorf maybe to elaborate on that question and anything else that you'd like to say about our careers programs, which we're
Sure thing. Thank you, Dean Boyer. So this is one of the best things that I am so proud of the university. Many other universities are cutting back in their career supports. And in some ways, some of them are frozen. Our team has been engaging employers throughout the spring. I'm pleased to say that well over 90% of our seniors actually had jobs and got into great graduate schools, many of them choosing to actually attend graduate programs here at the university. We had record placements at the top law schools, the top medical schools. And the reason for that is we have been reaching out to make sure that we know what these employers are looking for, what kind of medium they're going to be engaging in their own processes this coming fall. One of the exciting things we're going to be doing is so they're going to be virtual. Let me just be very blunt. The employers are not going to be visiting schools, but they are still planning to recruit. They want the best and brightest. And one of the things we're going to be doing is moving up by about 2 months the recruiting process at the University of Chicago, so that our students are going to be first and foremost right there. They're going to meet them, and you can think of, in my world, it's like early decisions. They're going to, whether it's Goldman Sachs, Bank of America, Teach for America, and anywhere in between, they are going to be holding fairs, holding one-on-one opportunities, all of this virtually. So what do we need to do to prepare for that? The Career Office has done an amazing job of putting together virtual resources, virtual programming that is going to run all throughout the summer, but especially and probably a little more intensely as we get closer to the fall. And this is going to provide any student the opportunity to learn a little bit more about the industry that they might be interested in, start thinking about what else do I need to do, what other kind of internships do I want to think about. Despite COVID and quarantine this spring, we still ended up with over 3,000 Metcalfs this year, Dean Boyer, which is incredible. Where many schools and quite honestly, many students had their offers taken away or rescinded. That didn't happen at the university, and in the few cases that it did, we were able to engage employers, engage faculty, and make sure that we could continue to do research opportunities and job opportunities, internships, virtually. One of the huge advantages we have is that probably 2 years ago, we launched the Micro Metcalf program. And this is something where students are able to do short-term work virtually for companies throughout the world. Google uses this a lot with us, Microsoft, a lot of the tech companies are very familiar with it. And so basically, anything that we would have done in the past, we are going to be able to do for our students this coming fall and throughout the year. And we're actually going to be able to do a few more things than we typically have done. One of the things I was very proud of was during the pandemic, and actually even now, some companies are actually doing well. Grubhub, at least if I'm a customer of Grubhub, then they're doing really well, because I would order once a month and now it's almost every night. And so, there are companies that are hiring, and the way you get them interested in UChicago is reach out and you set up the appointments and you aggressively work for our students, because once a company has one of our undergrads at their company, they want more. They're like potato chips. They just, you can't live on just one. And so, I think students, this is one of the huge benefits, whether you are, whether you're going to be in school remotely, whether you're going to be on campus, whether you're going to be just in Hyde Park, wherever you are, as a current student, we will be there to support you, and that starts now. So that's why I said, don't let others get ahead of you, because quite honestly, you're going to learn a lot, and this is the opportunity to actually to move forward. One of my Byron Trott, Dean Boyer, the sponsor of our business program, he gave an analogy that when the tide goes out, you see who's swimming naked. This is an opportunity. Other schools will be swimming naked, and our kids are going to be in scuba suits. So we're in good shape.
Okay, I would just add that I've long believed that there is no contradiction between liberal education and professional success. I think and we've been working very hard over the last 20 years to prove exactly that point. I think we've established national standards and national levels of success that I personally am very proud of, and that's really because of the high quality of our students. A couple of more questions. The question, again, I think on the minds of a lot of students as they think about the fall is, how about social interactions, social community outside the classroom? Will there be opportunity for social interactions? And maybe I can ask Regine to say a little bit about that.
Sure, absolutely. Thank you, Dean Boyer. We are very much planning for social interactions for our incoming students. Of course, keeping in mind partners in housing and residence life, in campus and student life. And we hope that the situation with COVID in Chicago and Illinois holds or continues in the right direction to allow us to bring together small groups of students together by residential communities in the fall. Of course, as we have more information, we expect to be able to share this info with students and their families over the summer.
Okay, thank you. And maybe just a couple more questions. I know a lot of people, many of our students are interested in athletics and sports. And as you know, I'm an avid bike rider, which is a form of athletics, actually. I intend to go for a bike ride, hopefully this evening. But anyway, the issue is what are our plans in the area of sports and athletics? And maybe, it's a developing situation, but maybe Michelle Rasmussen says words about that.
Sure, Dean Boyer, thank you. So there is, in fact, a group of us who are right now working on how we can safely and responsibly resume our varsity athletic program in the autumn. We have representatives from our athletics department on that working group, including head football coach Chris Wilkerson and head women's soccer coach Amy Reifert. And closely related to that, we're also very interested and invested in making sure that we have recreational facilities and amenities and opportunities available for all of our students in the autumn. So we're going to be working closely with not only the medical experts, but also our facilities services colleagues to understand how we can reopen Ratner and Henry Crown, South Field, and restart not only fitness options for students, but also some recreational sport opportunities. This is very closely tied to health and wellness. A fit student is a healthy and happy student. And so we're very invested in making sure that we have as many opportunities available as possible, especially as we head into the cooler months when running around outdoors may be less feasible. We want to be able to have students work out and have recreational opportunities inside in a way that's safe given the COVID-19 situation.
Michelle, you're not supposed to tell the incoming California, Florida kids it gets cold. I told them it's warm all year round.
I forgot. My bad.
Yeah, you can ride your bike every day of the year, believe me. Okay. So maybe one last question. A lot of people are very interested or concerned about dining and how this is going to work, how how am I going to eat? When am I going to eat? Will there be food for people with dietary restrictions? Or what about allergies? And how are students going to receive food and be able to access food? And, I know Richard mentioned a little bit about this, but maybe Richard Mason could say a little bit more about that area.
Yeah, John, thank you. So yes, in terms of the students with food intolerances or allergies, we're going to continue our program both with the registered dietitian that works for UChicago Dining and also the dietitian that works with Bon Appetit, our food service vendor. And so both of those resources are available. We work closely with students on an individual basis, and we're going to continue that this fall. I think the way in which we're going to do to-go is going to really be something that I think is going to be really helpful and important in terms of you'll be able to get a complete meal to go. And as the majority of our students are on the unlimited meal plan, they'll be able to go in and out with great frequency, which will really match their calendars, because we're going to see a very different experience. We've had, in terms of dining, everybody kind of gets out of class at the same time and then goes to the dining hall and then needs to eat before their next class. And that's going to be different this fall. So we've designed our program in a way that really will match the student schedule, and that they won't be spending a lot of time waiting in lines, and they won't have any sort of the crowding that could be a concern. So I feel really good about the plan that UChicago Dining and Bon Appetit have put together, and I think we're really going to be able to provide a robust program for our students.
Okay, well, thank you very much, Richard. I think we're kind of ending our time now, and as I said at the beginning, there were a number of questions and a whole variety of interesting and legitimate issues, and we'll be having a question and answer website to try to address many of these questions shortly, and that'll be available online. I want to just go back and remind everybody that this has always been a university that is where the things that count most is one's energy and ambition and talent. Universities are great because they have Nobel Prize winners, they have fancy buildings, they have great facilities, but what really makes a great university is the talent of the students and the dedication of the students. Our students are an unusually gifted and dedicated group of kids, and I'm so proud of them. I'm so proud of what they did during spring quarter, and I'm proud of their courage in approaching the coming year. They are a joy to teach, and the dedication of the faculty, to which Chris Weil referred, is kind of matches that deep appreciation that our faculty have with our students. The faculty are engaged in incredible planning processes now. We didn't ask for this pandemic to happen. We didn't ask for this crisis to happen, but we're trying to rise above it, and we're trying to use this as an opportunity to enrich our curriculum in ways that we might never have thought of before. And as the weeks unfold, we'll have more information about more things. But I think that that we're doing, but the items that Chris mentioned are really quite astonishing, and there's going to be a lot more of them. So I want to thank all of you for joining us. I hope that you are enjoying the summer wherever you are. I hope that you stay safe and well. I hope you stay in touch with us, and I hope that, as I said before, that whatever happens and whatever choice you make about the fall, you know that we are here to support you. And I hope that for many of you, we'll be able to welcome you home to Chicago in the fall. Thanks very much, and stay well.